This video is a response to Fake Sagan. Firstly, to congratulate him on the purchase of his shiny new assault rifle, and secondly, to politely tell him that his actions in firmly advocating the right to bear arms are morally questionable at best and morally perverse at worst. Firstly, the AK. Good choice. I like using them because of their simplicity, and the degree to which you can be a bit intuitive with them, whereas other assault rifles are too technical for my liking. Because the sights are so pronounced on most models, your eye relief is going to be nice and high, so cheek pressure on the rifle doesn't tend to be a problem, and you can use bits of the stock and trigger housing mechanism to kind of line up your position and make sure it stays the same between shots. You can also easily fire pretty accurate bursts of 5 rounds with an AK, whereas I always get thrown off after 3 with an SA-80 or an M16. With the M16, it's really the length of the barrel and the narrowness of the stock, whereas with the AK you don't get that, because the stock kind of curves under your shoulder a bit, and the barrel's a good length and starts close to the shoulder. So there's a nice, more manageable feel to the recoil action. Anyway, gun control. My position has always been that the selling and owning of firearms should be heavily regulated, such that only those who have legitimate, non-violent reason to own weapons are permitted to do so, and such that concealable firearms or assault weaponry cannot be bought at all. I'm going to argue in favour of this position, rather than arguing against Fake Sagan's position, as I believe his position of no control should indeed be the default, and the burden of proof is on me to demonstrate that there are compelling reasons to remove these freedoms. Now, the freedom to own a firearm confers 2 freedoms from which pro-gun advocates tend to build their case. First is self-defense. I would argue that this is not a significant freedom, as the number of cases where owning a firearm actually helps anyone seems very limited. I'm not saying such situations don't happen, but there simply aren't many of them compared to the number of gun-related homicides and armed robberies. It's a factor to take into consideration, but I would say it shouldn't receive too large a weighting. The other freedom is that to resist tyranny. But given the way force is distributed in our society, guns really make no difference either way. Even if every citizen of the entire US owned a rifle, the government owns the tanks, the planes, the helicopters, and the ships with cruise missiles. An entire population of willing citizens would be annihilated by a modern military. The way to protest and bring down governments is mass direct action, and non-violence is much more effective in the long term anyway. Notice how the Palestinians have never got anywhere by resisting Israel militarily, but the British were successfully ousted from India by peaceful protest. As for the freedoms won by banning handguns, well, that should be self-evident. If guns can be bought by anyone, they'll be bought by criminals. A man holding up a drugstore with a knife is a serious threat, but a couple of trained policemen can deal with him. The same situation with a handgun is infinitely more dangerous and hands a huge advantage to the thief. Also, we forget our own potential to do harm. We all might like to think of ourselves as reasonable people, but a lover's betrayal, a business deal gone awry, or just good old-fashioned mental illness can turn anyone into a killer. Notice that I always argue from the position of more freedom is better, and there Fake Sagan and I basically agree. That we differ in our conclusions is a sign of our differing perspectives and interpretations, and this is a valid argument, which it would be interesting to have. Naturally, I think I'm right, but it would be nice to hear a rebuttal.